daily words of God. His work in the flesh is of the utmost significance, which is spoken with regard to the work, and the one who ultimately concludes the work is the incarnate God, and not the Spirit. Some believe that God may sometime come to earth and appear to man, whereupon he shall personally judge the whole of mankind, testing them one by one without anyone being omitted. Those who think in this way do not know this stage of work of incarnation. God does not judge man one by one, and does not test man one by one. To do thus would not be the work of judgment. Is not the corruption of all mankind the same? Is not the substance of man all the same? What is judged is mankind's corrupt substance, man's substance corrupted by Satan, and all the sins of man. God does not judge the trifling and insignificant faults of man. The work of judgment is representative, and is not carried out especially for a certain person. Rather, it is work in which a group of people are judged in order to represent the judgment of all of mankind. By personally carrying out his work on a group of people, God in the flesh uses his work to represent the work of the whole of mankind, after which it is gradually spread. The work of judgment is also thus. God does not judge a certain kind of person or a certain group of people, but judges the unrighteousness of the whole of mankind, man's opposition to God, for example, or man's irreverence against him, or disturbance of the work of God, and so on. What is judged is mankind's substance of opposition to God, and this work is the work of conquest of the last days. The work and word of the incarnate God, witnessed by man, are the work of judgment before the great white throne during the last days, which was conceived by man during times past. The work that is currently being done by the incarnate God is exactly the judgment before the great white throne. The incarnate God of today is the God who judges the whole of mankind during the last days. This flesh and his work, word, and entire disposition are the entirety of him. Although the scope of his work is limited and does not directly involve the entire universe, the substance of the work of judgment is the direct judgment of all mankind. It is not work that is undertaken only for China or for a small number of people. During the work of God in the flesh, although the scope of this work does not involve the entire universe, it represents the work of the entire universe. And after he concludes the work within the work scope of his flesh, he will immediately expand this work to the entire universe, in the same way that the gospel of Jesus spread throughout the universe following his resurrection and ascension. Regardless of whether it is the work of the Spirit or the work of the flesh, it is work that is carried out within a limited scope, but which represents the work of the entire universe. During the last days, God appears to do his work using his incarnate identity, and God in the flesh is the God who judges man before the great white throne. Regardless of whether he is the Spirit or the flesh, he who does the work of judgment is the God who judges mankind during the last days. This is defined based on his work, and is not defined according to his external appearance or several other factors. Although man has conceptions of these words, no one can deny the fact of the incarnate God's judgment and conquest of all mankind. Regardless of how it is evaluated, facts are, after all, facts. No one can say that the work is done by God, but the flesh is not God. This is nonsense, for this work can be done by no one except God in the flesh. Since this work has already been completed, following this work, the work of God's judgment of man shall not appear for a second time. The second incarnate God has already concluded all of the work of the entire management, and there shall not be a fourth stage of God's work. Because the one who is judged is man, man who is of the flesh and has been corrupted, and it is not the spirit of Satan that is judged directly. The work of judgment is not carried out in the spiritual world, but among man.